Coordination, what's good? On the pod today, we have Ron, the founder of Audius. Audius is a fully decentralized music platform. So for listeners, it is a open source forkable protocol that allows you to discover and to listen and support musical artists. And if you're an artist, then it's a way of building your audience and engaging with fans, identifying the most important fans for you, and just generally building your music career. And so we talk a little bit in this episode about the history of the music industry, how we've moved from these central intermediaries that extract a lot of value to fully decentralized open source protocols that are going to create a better experience for both listeners and for artists. And then we talk about kind of the fun of having an open data set. In Ron's case, with Audius and the musical data set of what people are listening to, and with my case, having the experience of Gitcoin, what are the things that people are funding? And what are the things that you can discover when you've got an open data set and open source algorithms that allows people to curate the projects that they care about in both things? So, and another feature of Audius that I think is important is that it's a decentralized music platform. So the rules can't be changed on you as an artist. So I think that that's really important, especially if you look at the history of musical intermediaries, basically taking 90% of the upside in your musical career if you're an artist. And, if you're a listener, only routing you the artists where they have the most financial upside and not the ones that are according to your taste. So basically discovering and cataloging the opportunity space of creating a decentralized music platform with Ron from Audius on this episode. And I think this is a really regen episode because art and creative work is something that a lot of us in this industry have a lot of familiarity with. It's the way a lot of us pay our bills. And it's just so important to get the right art in front of the right people and to do it in a way in which the intermediaries can't take all the money. So creating a more green-pilled regen world, if you're an artist or if you're a listener, is kind of one of the themes that runs through this episode. And we're not just talking about doing it for funsies. Audius serves 7.5 million fans a month and has 250,000 artists on it. So we're doing this at scale at this point. So, really fun episode. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation about Audius. Enjoy.
COINSHIFT is a leading treasury management and infrastructure platform for DAOs and crypto businesses that need to manage their treasury operations. Every crypto org needs to manage its treasury, and COINSHIFT offers a simple, flexible, and efficient multi-chain treasury management platform built on top of the highly secure Gnosis Safe. With COINSHIFT, your organization can go from primitive single-chain treasury management to expressive, flexible, and multi-chain treasury features, such as global user management, global contacts, proposal management, and many other features that can be shared across an entire organization, allowing users to save time and reduce operational burdens and gas costs. COINSHIFT even has data tools like account reporting across the 7 chains on which it operates. Used by industry powerhouses such as Uniswap Grants, Balancer, Consensus, and Messari, COINSHIFT is speeding up the coordination and efficiency of the organizations that use it. You have to keep up with the frontier, and COINSHIFT makes that easy. So sign up at coinshift.xyz/bankless. The world has woken up to refi, and CELO is here for it. CELO is the layer 1 for the regenerative finance movement. It's fast, planet positive, and built for the real world. CELO has committed to producing a sustainable future from day one and has built its technology around one of the lowest carbon impact consensus mechanisms, and is the world's first carbon negative EVM compatible layer 1 blockchain. CELO is a movement to create the conditions of prosperity for everyone, whether it's tokenizing carbon credits with Toucan, providing capital to underserved communities with Unicorn, or building for millions of users around the globe. CELO was created to transform crypto enthusiasts into a movement of changemakers. Follow along on Twitter at CELO.org to learn more about how CELO is accelerating refi for a positive, lasting impact on people, communities, and the planet. And if you're a builder interested in refi, be sure to join the Build with CELO hackathon live now with a prize pool of over $100,000.
What's up, Ron? Great to have you, man.
Hey, great to be here, Kevin.
So you and I were chatting at Messari Mainnet and got to talking about your work at Audius. So can you tee us off by telling us about Audius?
Totally. So at a super high level, Audius is a music community and discovery platform that puts the artist in control. And that puts the artist in control is really what we see the key difference between this way of sharing content, building community, and a lot of the tools that have sort of preceded us. And yeah, the way we achieve that is by being fully decentralized. So there's a network of node operators, software engineers, artists, fans that together are cooperatively operating this network for the benefit of all the folks that use it, but also in a lot of cases because there are ways for them to earn revenue from the contributions that they're making. So yeah, that's it at a high level, serving about 6 to 7 million users a month these days, and around 250,000 artists.
Wow, that's quite a lot of scale for a non-technical community. Um, and I'm really excited about this design space because it feels like artists and creative people have traditionally had like the boot of a centralized intermediary, like a record label, on their neck and extracting as much profits as possible. And it feels like, if we're thinking that Web3 is for removing intermediaries and channeling more value to the people who are creating, then this just feels like a really fruitful community to start. I'm curious if that's your motivation in any way, shape, and form, or if you have any comments on that observation.
Yeah, I think that's definitely our motivation, but it's actually kind of I guess there's even a superordinate problem to those specific symptoms here, which I think is that creators in music have no control of their audience and no agency over how they access that audience, what they do with them, how they're able to charge them for things. The distribution channels that exist today are very opinionated about those things, and oftentimes those opinionated choices that have been made benefit a certain group of kind of incumbent players over the up and coming and the new. So yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I'd be curious what the most interesting trends that you're seeing on Audius are, and exactly, not only in terms of like the music that is hosted there, but in terms of the software that you're developing in order to coordinate a collective intelligence of peer-to-peer group of listeners with the artist. So, what are the most interesting trends that you're seeing on Audius?
Oh, what a great question, man. I think there are a few different categories of like, I don't know. I guess what I'd really in one case, trends, in others like emergent behavior, things that people are doing here that I don't know, like we never, as the folks who built the first version of this, like didn't
Hmm.
anticipate people would do, but it's like it's exciting to see, right? That's like the whole point of or the main point of building in this way, right, is that like you as the initial builders of the thing don't always know exactly what the best manifestations of certain behavior patterns and things are. But yeah, I think the biggest trends we're seeing are really around, I guess, what I would call super fan engagement. So being able to identify, segment, and ultimately charge directly like a smaller percentage of your total fan base, but the folks who are more rabid, more excited, more engaged. Um, I think that's like the biggest, not just for Audius, but for Web3 music broadly. This idea that not all fans are worth the same amount to you as a creator, right? And if you can provide a differentiated experience to folks who are willing to pay for it, there's a lot more money potentially to be made, and ultimately there are more paths to you as a creator being able to sustain yourself off of your creative work, rather than the patterns that we often see in our community, right? Of the number of creators that we have, like a lot of folks have to keep a second job, or they have to sort of do pick up consulting work, pick up gigs, even like driving for Uber and things like that. For a lot of folks, that's how they're able to kind of smooth out the volatility in their income that they can generate through music directly, and opening up more avenues for those folks to build that deeper connection and ultimately make more revenue from those top fans. So anyway, the way we're seeing that trend manifest in Audius, I think, is folks using the tool chain of Audius to better segment, identify those folks. And I think our community is just now on the cusp of those monetization tools. So tipping was the first one to go live, but there's a lot more work ahead there. I think to actually flesh out the tools to gate access to various experiences on payment. But yeah, that super fan engagement broadly is the thing that we're most excited about, and that I think our community has really galvanized around, right? This idea that not all fans are the same, and treating them in a one size fits all way, the way that Spotify or a lot of other platforms do, is ultimately not. It just doesn't make sense from the perspective of trying to both maximize the amount of revenue you can generate, but also maximize like the potential paths towards having a sustainable life as a creator, right? The level of scale that's needed to achieve that with other platforms as a creator is just it makes it such that only a few hundred to a few thousand artists can actually afford to make a living from their music. And anyway, so that's the biggest thing. Other things we've seen that folks might find interesting are really around some of the most heavily used features of Audius today being things that users kind of hacked together in a sense, right? Using primitives that existed but weren't intended for that. So a specific example I would point out are these remix competitions. So creators on Audius will share now today with the fully fledged feature set, they can share the stems and constituent pieces of a track and open that up to their community and say, hey, if you want to remix this, you want to make cool stuff with it, I'll listen to the remixes. Maybe I'll sign a few of those remixes to like an official remix EP that I release alongside the album, that kind of thing. Super fun. The way that started was a creator named Lido on Audius. Just wanted to see what his community would do with one of his songs. So he uploaded all the stems to Audius as separate tracks, marked them as downloadable. Then he posted on Instagram and said, hey, if anyone remixes this, mark your remix with the tag Lido remix. I'm going to go listen to all of them. And abusing the tag kind of structure in that fashion ended up working really well. I mean, abuse is really not even the right word. It's more just these things where we didn't. It's not like anyone anticipated that would be a use case that could make sense. There were just primitives there that allowed this creator to come up with a new way to engage folks. So we have a whole kind of laundry list of things like that have popped up, and that's I think been the best way to to source new ideas, new features. Dark mode is another one. Is something no one on our team, 3-4 years ago, the team that I work with felt strongly about, but there's a contingent of our community that felt really strongly, and someone just built it. Someone made like their own kind of copy of the CSS style sheet for the front end that had their own version of dark mode. And we're like, oh, this is really good. You know, they did a really good job with it, and people loved it. So yeah, like when people can express their preferences not just through asking like a company to do things, but can actually like go do it, right? Yeah, anyway, being able to see a lot of those emergent behaviors has been super fun.
I'm curious if you could take a step back and look at, so is Audius a double-sided market between listeners whose jobs to be done is to discover new music and to listen to that music and maybe collect it, and artists whose job to be done is to build a audience and to start earning from it? Would that be a correct characterization of what Audius is, or is there a third side of the market or anything you'd push back on there?
I think that's a correct characterization, but there is a third side of the market too, which is node operators. So the way Audius architecturally is set up, there are these node operators that have two roles in the system. They host content and metadata for creators, and then they index the metadata, and there's this kind of API that that the nodes make accessible to be able to query. You know, if I can look up something like what are all of Kevin's tracks that he's uploaded, and how much have people engaged with them, right? So yeah, with that third prong, I think that's an accurate picture.
Got it. I'm curious, between in that triple-sided marketplace, what are the things that you can do as a Web3 project that's working in this space that you couldn't do if you were a Web2 project? Does Web3 give any superpowers to Audius that it wouldn't otherwise already have?
Yeah, it most certainly does, and yeah, I think a few that the folks listening today would probably really enjoy hearing about are discovery. So the algorithm for determining like what trends on Audius is something that's actually like open, collaboratively developed, but also something that can be forked. So there can be like multiple views of how trending should work, for example. And if you because all that metadata is open too, right? All of everything from plays to favorites to the whole corpus of track metadata is all open. Folks can also build their own recommender systems, analytics tooling, etc. So I think that's been one of the biggest superpowers, like the for the size of catalog that Audius has today, on the order of a million or so tracks. Like if you sat like all day for the rest of your life and listened only to music on Audius, you wouldn't be able to hear everything, right? There need to be shortcuts to helping to surface to you the content that you're most likely to enjoy at a given time. And the algorithmic curation side is a big part of that. Equally big, though, in our case, is human-driven curation, and the capability for individual curators on Audius who are making playlists, reposting content, etc., to be able to earn revenue through the listening that they create through their curation, right? So there are a number of people like I follow, for example, that I follow because I think I like their taste in music, and then I will listen to the things that they're engaging with, and through that, like that, there's actually a sustainable kind of business model, if you will, for that curator of content to actually be able to generate revenue. Now, I don't think anyone quite yet on Audius is actually earning a living full on through curation, but that's the direction that I think that heads right now, that there is a baked in business model there that's above board, and that folks understand and makes sense. Their incentive from a curation perspective is to generate as much listening on the things they curate as possible, right? Because that's how they generate revenue. So those are a couple examples that really stand out. I think the biggest superpower from the artist perspective, though, is the not being able to be deplatformed, right? So that's kind of the issue that for the last 20 years or so has plagued a lot of other user-generated music ecosystems and communities. I mean, I'm going to date myself saying this, but all the way back to MySpace, all the way up through SoundCloud being one of the more recent examples there. There's kind of a long history of platforms changing the rules on creators and on developers when it suits them. And ultimately that, in the case of SoundCloud, most recently leading to this mass exodus of their community. I think today SoundCloud's ongoing engagement usage is about a fifth or a fourth of what it once was. So being structured in the way that Audius is, and where users actually control things like curation and discovery, I couldn't, like, even if I wanted to change discovery somehow to favor, like, institutionally owned content, so like from record labels and what have you, like I couldn't do that unless a majority of the community actually voted to adopt that set of changes to the core discovery. And then even if that happened, folks could still fork off of like the kind of core discovery algorithm and create their own variations as well. So yeah, I think these are the things that our community have gotten most excited about. Just that, like, I guess operating with a level of certainty that their audience here can't be taken away from them, combined with the ability to earn more control of Audius over time through their contributions to making this ecosystem more interesting, more useful, more valuable. That's, I think, those things have made folks choose to engage here, even before there was an audience for them or anything else, right? Those first few hundred or first few thousand artists who were, posting into the void, they were still excited for these things. And now operating at a larger level of scale, it's really, really fun and cool to see these things actually playing out in practice, right? The things we theorized about in the early days.
Yeah, I'm curious. Before I asked this question, I just want to say this preface, which is that I guess I'm mostly well known for funding or building Gitcoin, which is a crowdfunding platform that allows people who are working on public goods to get funding. And Gitcoin reached a similar amount of scale with $72 million worth of funding for open source software, but also other things. And I guess I'll just say that I view like creative work and knowledge work to be on this kind of spectrum of I would put music and artists that are building up an audience sort of on the same spectrum as a programmer, which is I self-identify as a programmer. I think, Ron, you said you're also a programmer. Is that right? Before we started recording?
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. And so, I feel this like this symmetry between Gitcoin grants having this data set of like 700,000 data points of what the Ethereum community cares about, and Audius having tens of thousands of likes and shares and algorithms to help sort through music. And I'm just wondering, what is your view on the emergent collective intelligence that's coming up in the Audius system around music curation and discovery, and just routing people's like discovering people's tastes and routing them to the right music and discovery. It feels like with that open data set all being on chain, there's really an interesting data science problem here. And I think that collective intelligence, if we're going to do commons resource allocation in the right way, then we need collective intelligence to figure out which parts of this data are the most important to the most people. And I think that I'm complexifying it by saying all this stuff, but I'll just stick the landing on this question by saying, what are the coolest things that you're anticipating from a collective intelligence perspective with this open data set at Audius?
Yeah, man, I want to bring the fun back to music discovery. That's my motivation. Other folks in the community have differing motivations too, but I kind of miss the days when you would stumble upon something that unlike anything you've ever heard, but that you end up liking, and I think algorithmic curation more broadly is really good at serving you more of the same of something, right? So it's good at figuring out what's similar and surfacing to you those things. I think we haven't, as try as folks might, we haven't figured out algorithmically yet, just societally how to have taste, right, and how to kind of source for taste. And I think that's where the collective intelligence side of Audius is most exciting to me. The opportunity to reward good curation and good selection of music being done by people, and I'm excited to see the community double down on that. Like, I'd love to see people build out things like, um, for example, incentivizing someone to be among the earlier listeners of a piece of content that ends up going viral, right? Like, what if you could actually get rewarded for doing? I mean, it is work, right? It's work if you are going out and listening to a lot of content to try to find those diamonds in the rough. I like to do that for fun too, but I'm providing a value to whatever platform I'm doing that on, right? And in a traditional kind of Web2 context, that value is being accrued by and held by and controlled by a company or set of companies. In our case, that like you just said, that open data set, I think, grows more and more and more valuable as more people use it and engage with it, and are effectively contributing to it, just through their kind of, their goings on in the world. And yeah, I think that that collective, that ability for, the benefit being able to be derived from the collective to be larger than the sum of the individual inputs and contributions. And yeah, I don't know if we're ready to steer the conversation yet into, sustainability and like the token economic structures around this, but ultimately, I think that's where these things get most exciting for me, when you can actually directly incentivize value creating activities at a level that is less than the amount of net value being created for the ecosystem, but more than, much more than usually the zero that a contributor could earn from those activities elsewhere. You end up in this really amazing, like, grow the pie kind of scenario where that collective intelligence can get stronger and stronger and stronger, but can actually do so in a sustainable manner. Yeah.
Working in Web3 is awesome. It's freeing, powerful, and so much fun. But working outside of the typical W-2 employee structure is a deal breaker for so many people. OPOLIS is helping the self-sovereign worker focus on what they do best, their work, while OPOLIS manages the back end. There's a lot of nation-state overhead when working in Web3, and OPOLIS takes care of all of the back end stuff, freeing you up to do what you do best, your work. OPOLIS leverages group buying power through a community employment co-op, helping you save 20 to 50% on high-quality, affordable healthcare options through Cigna. So do what you love and maintain your financial security with OPOLIS. You must be authorized to work inside the United States to receive OPOLIS's benefits, but OPOLIS is expanding its services to Canada starting on June 1st of next year. So book a 30-minute free consultation with OPOLIS experts and join OPOLIS by December 31st to get 1,000 work and 1,000 bank tokens. Go to connect.opolis.co/bankless to get started. GOLDFINCH is a decentralized credit protocol with a mission to connect the world's capital to the world's growth. GOLDFINCH focuses on real yields from real companies, so start lending your USDC to real businesses driving growth worldwide. GOLDFINCH's borrowers are proven fintechs and credit funds in emerging markets who need access to GOLDFINCH's capital to drive economic growth in regions faced with barriers to financial access. In just under 2 years, GOLDFINCH has loaned over 100 million USDC, reaching over 1 million people and businesses across 28 countries. GOLDFINCH is doing what DeFi was always meant to do, expanding financial access to those who have historically been shut out of the TradFi system. So, become a GOLDFINCH member to put your USDC to work, empowering real businesses' growth. Join GOLDFINCH's new member vaults to be an active investor and take part in supporting GOLDFINCH's security and expansion. Receive yield enhancements generated by protocol revenue, plus access exclusive communication channels and more. So go to goldfinch.finance to get started.
I feel like there's this huge opportunity if you could, like, as opposed to like Twitter or I don't know, let's call it Spotify, where there's one central party that's going through the data and curating like the playlists. If you have this open data set, then and an incentive for anyone to create an algorithm that helps you discover new artists or just play your favorite hits, then basically there's just like this explosion of curation potential that comes out of the free and open source and forkability, and I can see that being really important for being an artist that's trying to break out or someone that is trying to discover new music. I mean, the music and creative taste is just such an n-dimensional space that it feels like doing it in an open source and forkable way is just a way more powerful way to do it than having a central party that is doing it. So I just see a lot of potential there. And I also see a lot of symmetries in how Gitcoin grants works. And with the grants protocol launching, basically making that data available so that people can build new interfaces for discovering Gitcoin grants and public goods on top of that open data set. So that to me feels really powerful. And it, I guess I'm curious if you're seeing the same thing on your side at Audius.
Yeah, dude, and I love what you all have managed to do there, because I think it's I see the Audius community aspiring to get to where you all are with Gitcoin grants. Like, it's not yet possible today to make money from generating one of these algorithms on Audius. People still do it because it's fun, right? And they like the problem. It's like a fun thing.
To be clear, on Gitcoin, there's not a way to make money off of the algorithms at this point either. But that's something that I could easily project into the future and see.
Totally, yeah. Because if you are improving the quality of funds routing and decision making there, that is value creating activity, right? And similarly for us, if you're improving the quality of recommendation, so yeah, human curation is incentivized, but right now algorithmic curation is not. But yeah, to kind of echo your thoughts there. The key, I think, here is that data set being openly understandable, and anyone can spin up one of these Audius metadata indexing nodes and have like a full Postgres index of all the things happening here and can do whatever they want with it, right? It'll keep as long as you keep running the indexer code, you'll keep up with what's happening in the network, and you can build your own little ETL chains and everything else around that core data set and data structure. It's
just for the listeners, ETL stands for extract, transform, load. It's basically a computer programmer for taking one data set and transforming it into another form that's more useful for data analytics. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure the listeners.
No, thank you for that. Yeah, I get carried away sometimes talking about these things, but yeah, you can build up any. I guess, putting it really broadly, you could build up like any sort of analytic pipeline that you might want to around this, right? If you think there's a certain signal or set of signals that is really, really interesting. And actually, for what it's worth, we've heard about some labels, for example, and others that have built up their own telemetry like this around Audius, like as a way to try to identify like content that's breaking out or artists that might be breaking out. And that's a perfectly valid use case for it, right? The data's open; anyone can do what they want with it, and it's cool to see.
I just want to camp on that for a second because listeners might not realize this, but in an industry that's traditionally depended on central intermediaries to get your breakout hit, to launch a tour, to get a CD, an LP released to market, and to get the fact that there's no intermediary and it's just something that you can do through your own grit on something like Audius, I think is really huge. And especially when you think about these intermediaries taking 90% of the upside in your career when they do give you that breakout hit, just removing that intermediary and giving the artist ownership of their career and their trajectory, not only at the time in which you make the deal, but because the protocol is hard, it's credibly neutral, and it's not going to change the rules on you in the future, is a big fucking deal. And so I just wanted to camp on that point for a second there. The breakout via an algorithm that you don't have to sell your soul to is like a pretty big game changer, I think.
Dude, couldn't agree more. That's why we're here, right?
Yeah, I think so. And so disintermediated sort of crowdfunding and building your career is the thing, or just getting funding for your work is like the symmetry that I see between the stuff that we've done on Gitcoin and that you're doing in Audius. It's just that we're focused on public goods and computer programmers, and y'all are focused on creatives and musicians.
You got it. Yeah.
Well, if Audius is maximally successful in the next 10 years, how do you think that changes the music industry or the lives of artists or listeners? What, just project us 10 years out and where's this all going?
Yeah. So I actually think for what it's worth, this is the direction music is going with or without us. But I do see Audius being a large part of this future. But I think the future music economy is one that's predicated on this direct engagement economy, as we call it, where creators are vertically integrated businesses that are able to directly offer services and other things to their fans. And by services, I mean everything from concert tickets when they tour, to merchandise, to content like music, all of the kind of things that as a creator right now you are dependent on these centralized silos of information that don't talk to each other and that have no ability to cross-pollinate between one another. I think that relationship gets reoriented a bit, where the creators are able to vertically integrate that control of the relationship with fans, but deploy almost like you could think of this as like different experiences, different modules on top of that same core social graph, right? Everything from tours and concerts to everything else. So, for our part in that, we really see Audius long term becoming like the fan CRM of record, if you will, right? We think Audius is the best place to build up and manage that social graph, and then ultimately for others over time to. I think today there are something like 100 or around 100 third-party applications built around Audius. Actually, the majority of listening on Audius today doesn't even come from the first-party product. It's coming from these various different front ends and things that other folks have built out. I would see similar integrations happening over time in those other verticals, right? 'Cause it makes sense for those folks too, right? If you can tap the distribution to fans that exists here and use it in your merchandise storefront or your concert ticketing platform, all of that feeding back into the same social graph and the same data set makes those relationships more and more valuable over time. Eventually, you'll be able to, let's say I'm a fan, and Kevin, you're a creator of this podcast. You should be able to look at my profile and see, oh, I've listened to 20 of your episodes. I went to a live recording at ETH Denver or something like that. I have purchased some form of merchandise from you. It should be possible for you to see all of that, but then ultimately to segment me based on that. That's really where we see this all going.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting to follow. And, I just want to I know that we're both engineers and system thinkers here, but I just want to land where we started with the Green Pill podcast. And that's around making a better consumption experience and discovery experience for the end consumers, and a better way to build your career if you're a creative person trying to get out there. And so I think that is all in the service of those pro-social regen kind of green pill memes.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah, it is. And we're excited to to try and do our part here around music. And I think this is just I do really see this being the way that all creative work heads over time. The idea that you as a creator should be building value for these platforms that are mediating that access to fans, but ultimately aren't able to port that value out or use it across other things. Is like it's crazy when you think about it. It makes sense in the context of the history of how the web came to be and everything else, but there's no technological reason why those things aren't interoperable, and there is not more agency for creators. I think we're just seeing it happen at different paces in different areas, right? Like this email newsletter movement, I think is a really fascinating one to me in that respect, right? Where we're seeing more and more journalists kind of leave bigger media outlets and build up their own audiences on Substack and elsewhere, but where the list of email addresses, that's actually their social graph effectively, right? And if you can export that to CSV and carry it between, so CSV just being this kind of interoperable data format, you can carry that around between things. I don't think there's an easy analog for that with a lot of other creative kind of things, but I guess that's like I think that's the way all of this heads over time, right? For programmers and people who build cool stuff like GitHub and the like npm package registry and like these sort of silos that are already kind of coming to be that segment audience. Like I don't know, at some stage I think I mean, that's already, you can already see it in Gitcoin, right? Like the open approach winning out, and in just the amount of funding you all are able to generate for these open source creators compared to the Patreons and the NPM repository and everything else.
Yeah, it's a beautiful vision. And I think that I mean, art is just a beautiful and viscerally fun thing to consume. I feel like such like an engineer. I'm like try to like quantize the value of art in the world, but that's what you get for listening to a podcast run by someone who's trained as a computer scientist. Um, so we're running out of time. I'd love to converge and stick the landing on this episode. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to say?
Oh man, I think there are so many other things we could potentially talk about, but I think in the lens of collective intelligence, what I'm most excited about is I think folks like us at Audius and you all at Gitcoin and everyone listening here as well, like there aren't best practices here yet. I think we're all trying to figure out like how to put into practice these visions for the future that we're having. And there's lots of open discussion happening around the same. So I would just encourage more and more people to join in and to provide their 2 cents. It's more than welcome right now. I think the only way for us to actually find what structures and frameworks actually work for scaling collective intelligence beyond the levels that we're at right now, and doing so in a way that's actually effective, is to experiment and to try these different paths. So yeah, I think that's the only thing I would add, man. This was super fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. On behalf of artists everywhere, thank you for your work in innovating on how Web3 can help artists create a better income stream. And I really can't wait to have you back in a couple years, and we can look back and see if any of these predictions came true. And there's always a curveball that comes as the market develops. And I'll be curious to see what things we learn over the next couple years. So, Ron, keep up the great work. Thanks for joining the pod, and we'll see you out there.
Thanks so much for having me, Kevin.
Peace.